the cowboy made one Christmas wish, and she appeared on the morning train platform. Luke lived on the edge of a quiet western town, on a ranch that had been in his family for generations. The ranch was small by most standards, with a few horses, a barn, and wide stretches of snow-covered fields in the winter. The fences creaked in the wind, and the cold air smelled sharp and clean. Luke was used to living alone. He had grown up learning how to care for the land and the animals. His father had taught him everything he knew about ranch life before he passed away, and now it was all Luke had. Every morning he woke before the sun. The first thing he did was step outside and take in the fresh air. He would check on the horses, making sure they had enough hay and that their coats were thick against the cold. After that, he went to the barn to feed them. The sound of hooves on the wooden floor and the soft snorts of the animals were comforting to him. The ranch kept him busy, and he liked it that way. Still, sometimes in the quiet evenings, he felt a loneliness that the land and the animals could not fill. It was Christmas time. The town had decorated a few lampposts and store windows, stringing lights and putting up small trees. Children ran through the snow in colorful jackets, and families walked together, laughing and carrying packages. Luke watched from the window of his small cabin as the world outside celebrated. He felt happy for them, but he also felt the cold hollow of being alone. The holiday was a time for family and togetherness, and he had neither. He had never married. He had no siblings nearby. The only family left were memories and old photographs. That Christmas Eve, after finishing his chores, Luke sat by the fireplace with a cup of steaming coffee. He stared at the dancing flames and let his mind wander. He remembered the Christmases from his childhood, when his father and mother had decorated the tree and the house had smelled of pine and baked bread. He remembered laughter and warmth. Those days felt like a lifetime ago. The fire crackled, and outside, snow began to fall softly. Each flake glimmered in the light of the moon. The silence of the night wrapped around him. Luke thought of something he had never done before. He closed his eyes and whispered a wish into the quiet room. He did not speak it loudly. He did not write it down. He just said it to himself. "I wish for someone to share this life with," he said, "even if it is just for a little while. Someone who can understand the quiet, the land, and me." The words felt strange, almost awkward, because he had always been independent. He had always been alone. But that night, the wish came from the bottom of his heart. He wanted companionship. He wanted to see a smile that was meant for him. He wanted to share simple moments, like sitting by the fire or walking through the snow. After making the wish, Luke felt a mix of hope and doubt. He had lived a long time in solitude, and he knew the world could be unpredictable. He could not expect miracles. Yet a small spark of belief stayed alive. He looked out the window at the dark sky and the snowy fields, and imagined what it would be like to meet someone who could walk beside him through life, even if only for a short time. He imagined someone laughing at his jokes, helping feed the horses, or simply sitting quietly by his side. The image warmed him more than the fire ever could. That night, he tried to sleep, but the wish stayed in his mind. He thought about all the little things he would like to share with someone: decorating a small tree, baking simple bread, taking long walks in the snow, and talking about dreams no one else might understand. He thought about how strange it would be to let someone into his world, someone who had never seen the ranch or the quiet town he lived in. Yet the thought did not scare him. Instead, it filled him with a gentle excitement. Maybe the world had someone for him after all. The next morning, Luke woke up early as usual. The snow had blanketed the ranch in white, and the sky was soft with the first light of dawn. He dressed in his warmest clothes and went outside. The wind bit at his face, but he welcomed it. There was a crispness in the air that made him feel alive. He walked to the barn and fed the horses again, his mind still on the wish he had made the night before. He wondered if the universe really heard him. He laughed softly at himself for thinking so. He had always been practical, but part of him, a small, hopeful part, wanted to believe in something bigger than the routine of ranch life. After the chores, he decided to visit the train station in town. It was early, and the streets were empty except for a few travelers and workers starting their day. Luke had walked past the station many times, but he had never gone there in the early morning. Something about the quiet platform and the sound of distant whistles drew him. He walked along the snow-covered road, boots crunching against the frost. He thought of the wish again and smiled, thinking that maybe, just maybe, this day would be different. As Luke reached the station, he noticed the frost glinting on the rails, the rising smoke from the nearby engine, and the soft glow of the early morning sun. He leaned against a wooden post and watched as the tracks stretched into the distance. The platform was empty, except for a few travelers waiting for the train. Luke shivered slightly in the cold, wrapping his coat tighter around him. He felt a strange mix of patience and anticipation. Something in his heart told him to wait. He did not know why, but he felt that this place and this morning held the possibility of change. Inside the station, the sounds of footsteps and murmurs filled the air. Luke listened quietly. He felt a calmness he had not felt in years. The wish from the night before had settled into a quiet hope. He did not know how it would happen, or if it would happen at all, but he felt that if he could meet someone who understood the quiet, someone who could share the simple life he lived, everything could feel right again. He looked down the tracks, imagining a figure stepping off the train, a smile for him, eyes that met his, and a presence that made the cold morning warm. The train began to approach, its wheels clattering against the tracks. Luke straightened, holding his hat in his hands. The sound of the engine filled the station, echoing through the quiet town. Snow swirled in the air as the train slowed, the whistle blowing gently. Luke's heart beat faster. He did not know why, but a feeling of anticipation filled him. Perhaps it was just the excitement of the season, the hope in his heart. Or perhaps the universe had something in store. He did not know. All he knew was that he had made a wish, and he was waiting for it in the only way he knew how, patiently, quietly, and with hope. As the train stopped, the doors opened and travelers began to step down onto the platform. Luke watched silently, his eyes scanning each face. He felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. What if no one came for him? What if the wish stayed a wish forever? But as he looked at the crowd, his heart caught on a figure walking carefully in the snow, carrying a suitcase, and moving toward the town with purpose. She did not know him, and he did not know her. But something about her made his chest tighten with a sense of recognition he could not explain. Luke straightened, brushing the snow off his coat, and stepped forward. The morning light glinted off the frost, and the sound of the train faded behind them. The world seemed to pause for a moment, as if holding its breath. Luke felt the warmth of hope rise in him, stronger than the cold of the morning. His wish had been simple, his heart quiet, and yet here, on the platform of a small town, it felt as if something had begun. He watched her carefully, noting the gentle sway of her steps, the soft fall of her hair, and the cautious smile she gave as she looked around. Luke realized that in all his years of solitude, he had never waited for anyone in this way. The feeling was new, exciting, and comforting all at once. Perhaps this was the beginning of something he had longed for, someone to share the quiet days, the work, and the small joys of life. Perhaps the Christmas wish he whispered under the stars was about to come true. The morning air was crisp and cold, and snow continued to fall gently over the small town. Luke stood on the platform, his coat wrapped tightly around him. The sound of the train's wheels fading behind him left a quiet that felt both peaceful and full of possibility. He watched the travelers move toward the streets, carrying bags and bundles, some with children holding hands, others alone like him. Luke's heart still carried the memory of the wish he had made the night before, and he could not help but feel that something special was about to happen. Among the crowd, a young woman moved carefully across the platform. Her name was Emily. She had grown up in a bustling city, and the quiet of this small town felt strange yet comforting. She was traveling to spend Christmas with her family, a journey she looked forward to every year. But this time, it felt different. Perhaps it was the soft snow falling around her or the gentle hush of the morning. But Emily felt a pull, a sense that this Christmas would be unlike any other. She carried a small suitcase and a bag of gifts, and her eyes scanned the platform as she tried to get her bearings. Luke noticed her immediately. Something about her presence drew him in. She moved with purpose, but also with care, as if she was stepping into a world she wanted to understand. He watched silently, unsure if it was courage or hope that made him approach. He had spent many Christmases alone, wishing quietly for companionship, and now, in front of him, someone moved through the snow as if she had been sent to answer that wish. Luke took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. The last thing he wanted was to seem strange or desperate. Emily noticed Luke as he stepped forward. He offered a gentle nod, a simple greeting that was warm without being intrusive. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying over the snow. Emily smiled back, appreciating the friendliness. Traveling alone often made her feel a little nervous, and the sight of a kind face in the cold morning brought relief. She nodded politely and adjusted her bag. The moment was brief, but there was a quiet connection, a sense of recognition that neither of them could explain. Luke walked closer, offering to help with her suitcase. "Here, I can help you with that," he said. Emily hesitated for a moment, then handed it over. The suitcase was heavier than it looked, and Luke carried it with ease, placing it safely on the platform. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of surprise at his kindness. Luke simply smiled, feeling warmth spread through him despite the chill. Small acts of care, he realized, could build bridges between people, even strangers. They began to walk together, Luke matching his pace to hers. The snow crunched under their boots, and the early sunlight reflected off the frost on the rooftops. They exchanged small talk at first. Emily asked about the town, about the train schedule, and about the cold weather. Luke answered patiently, sharing small details about the town and his life on the ranch. He spoke simply and honestly, without exaggeration or pretense. Emily listened, intrigued by his calm presence and the straightforward way he spoke about life. As they moved down the street, Luke noticed how Emily looked at the buildings and the snow-covered trees with curiosity. It reminded him of himself when he had first come to the town years ago. He found himself pointing out small details, a store that had been there for decades, a lamppost with a tiny wreath, the bakery that smelled of fresh bread. Emily smiled at his observations, enjoying the simplicity and care in his words. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people walking and noticing the world around them. Luke decided to show her a small cafe nearby. The warm glow of the windows invited them inside. As they stepped in, the smell of coffee and baked goods wrapped around them like a soft blanket. The cafe was quiet, with only a few early patrons. Luke held the door for Emily, and they found a small table by the window. They removed their coats and settled in, the warmth of the room contrasting with the cold outside. Luke felt a sense of relief. The first step had been taken, and the awkwardness of meeting someone new seemed to fade. They ordered coffee, and as they waited, the conversation began to flow more naturally. Emily spoke of her life in the city, her love for travel, and her excitement about spending Christmas with her family. Luke shared stories of growing up on the ranch, of the seasons and the animals, and of the quiet satisfaction that came from working with his hands and living simply. They laughed softly at small jokes and moments of shared observation. Each word, each glance, built a connection that felt effortless and real. Outside, the snow continued to fall, creating a gentle white blanket over the town. Luke and Emily watched from the window as children ran past, laughing, and couples walked hand in hand. The sight reminded Luke of the loneliness he had felt, but now, with Emily sitting across from him, it felt different. He realized that the feeling of emptiness had been replaced by a quiet anticipation. Something new was beginning, something neither of them had expected but both could feel. As they sipped their coffee, Luke noticed how Emily's eyes sparkled in the soft morning light. It was not just the reflection of the sun or the snow, but a light of curiosity and warmth that drew him in. Emily noticed how Luke looked at her with gentle interest, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that made her feel seen and respected. There was a calm honesty in his gaze, a simplicity that made the world outside the cafe fade into the background. Time passed quickly, though neither of them noticed. The coffee grew cold, and the morning slowly moved into late morning. Luke suggested walking back toward the station to catch the next train if she needed to continue her journey. But Emily smiled and shook her head. She did not feel the need to rush. The snow and the quiet town, combined with the warmth of the cafe, made her want to linger. Luke felt the same. He realized that sometimes the most important moments were the ones where there was no hurry, no pressure, just two people sharing time. As they stepped back outside, the snow continued to fall softly. The world seemed quieter, more gentle, and full of possibility. Luke walked beside Emily, noticing the way she moved carefully through the snow, her eyes scanning the trees and buildings. He felt a sense of protection, not because she needed it, but because he wanted to share care and attention in a way that was honest and natural. Emily, in turn, felt a sense of ease, a comfort in his presence that made the cold morning feel warm. They walked past the frozen fountain in the town square, past the small shops, and toward the outskirts of town. Luke told Emily about the ranch nearby, about the animals, the fields, and the small cabin he lived in. She listened with interest, imagining the quiet life he described. There was something appealing about the simplicity and honesty of it. She realized that the world outside the city could be gentle and full of small joys she had not known before. Luke suggested they stop by the bakery for a small treat before returning. They entered, and the smell of fresh bread and pastries filled the air. The baker greeted them warmly, and Luke introduced Emily. They chose a few pastries and hot chocolate, carrying them carefully outside. The snow continued to fall, the world wrapped in a quiet white blanket. Luke and Emily sat on a bench near the bakery, enjoying the warmth of the treats and the soft snowfall. The moment felt timeless, like a small Christmas miracle unfolding quietly in the morning light. They talked about their dreams, their memories of past holidays, and the simple pleasures that made life meaningful. Luke realized how easy it was to share his thoughts with Emily, how natural the conversation felt. Emily felt a sense of trust she rarely felt with strangers. Each word, each laugh, each glance strengthened a bond that neither of them fully understood yet. It was the kind of connection that came slowly but surely, a quiet magic of the human heart. As the morning grew brighter, Luke and Emily prepared to part ways, though neither wanted the moment to end. Emily had plans to visit family, and Luke had chores waiting at the ranch. Yet, there was a silent understanding that this meeting was not the end, but a beginning. Luke walked her back toward the station, carrying a sense of hope that he had not felt in years. Emily smiled, feeling the warmth of a connection she had never expected to find. The train approached again, and as Emily prepared to board, she turned to Luke. "Thank you," she said softly. For everything this morning?" Luke nodded, smiling, feeling a quiet joy. "Take care," he said. "Maybe we will see each other again." Emily's eyes sparkled with the possibility, and she stepped onto the train, waving gently. Luke watched until the train disappeared into the distance, snow swirling around the tracks. His heart felt light, filled with hope and anticipation for what was to come. Luke returned to the ranch, feeling a warmth he had not known in years. The morning had been ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the quiet moments that built a connection between him and Emily. He thought of the wish he had made under the stars, and he smiled. Perhaps the universe had heard him after all. Perhaps this Christmas something wonderful was beginning, a connection that could change his life forever. The next morning, Luke woke early, as he always did. The ranch was quiet, blanketed in fresh snow that sparkled under the first rays of the sun. The horses pawed at the ground, eager for their morning feed, and the barn smelled faintly of hay and earth. Luke went through his usual routine, feeding the animals and checking the fences, but his mind kept wandering back to yesterday's encounter with Emily. He could not shake the feeling that something significant had begun, something that could change the quiet rhythm of his life forever. He had never expected a stranger to bring such warmth into his world so quickly. The memory of her smile, the way she laughed softly at his small jokes, and the ease with which their conversation had flowed, stayed with him. For the first time in years, he felt anticipation, a gentle excitement for the day ahead. Luke finished his chores quickly, glancing at the clock. It was still early, and the snow was falling gently again, dusting the fields with white. He decided to visit the train station once more, feeling a pull in his heart that told him something important might happen. Emily, meanwhile, had arrived at a small inn nearby. She had chosen to spend the night in town rather than continue her journey immediately. The quiet streets, the falling snow, and the peacefulness of the town had drawn her in. She found herself thinking of Luke constantly, recalling his stories about the ranch, the animals, and the small joys of everyday life. Something about him felt real, honest, and kind. She realized that in her city life, she rarely met people who spoke with such sincerity. The thought made her smile as she prepared for the morning. By mid-morning, Luke walked along the snow-covered streets toward the station. He kept a careful eye on the tracks, hoping to catch sight of Emily before the train arrived. He did not know if she would come again or if it was just a passing moment, but the hope in his heart guided his steps. Each crunch of snow under his boots sounded louder than usual, echoing in the quiet town. The platform, frosted with ice and snow, looked almost magical in the soft winter light. Luke took a deep breath, wrapping his coat tightly, and waited. Emily, bundled in a warm coat and scarf, walked toward the station with a sense of purpose. She felt a strange excitement, a pull that drew her here, as if something she could not name was waiting for her. She remembered the kindness Luke had shown her the day before, the way he had helped with her suitcase, the gentle way he had spoken, the soft humor that had made her laugh. She wondered if it was strange to feel so connected to someone she had only met briefly, but the feeling was real, and it filled her with warmth despite the cold. The train arrived, slowing to a gentle stop with a soft screech. Luke watched the doors open and travelers began stepping onto the platform. He scanned each face, his heart beating faster with each passing moment. Then he saw her, Emily, moving carefully through the snow, her eyes catching his from a distance. His breath caught in his throat. The wish he had made under the stars seemed to have brought her here, as if the universe had answered in the quietest, most perfect way. He stepped forward, instinctively brushing snow off his coat, unsure whether he should call out or wait. Emily noticed him immediately. A smile spread across her face, and she waved lightly, a mixture of recognition and excitement in her expression. Luke felt a warmth rise in him, more powerful than the fire in his cabin the night before. He walked toward her, keeping his step steady, as if he had been waiting for this moment his whole life. When they met, the air seemed to hold its breath around them. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. Just the quiet, powerful feeling that two people who were meant to meet had finally found each other. "Good morning," Luke said softly, his voice carrying warmth and steadiness. Emily's smile deepened. "Good morning," she replied, her words filled with genuine happiness. They exchanged a simple greeting, and yet the moment felt extraordinary. Luke offered his hand to help her with the suitcase she carried. "I can take that for you," he said. Emily handed it over without hesitation, trusting him as if she had known him for years. The small act of care between them built a bridge, connecting two lives in the simplest, most honest way. As they walked together, Luke spoke about the quiet streets, the snow-covered town, and the early morning light. Emily listened with curiosity and delight, asking questions about the town and the people who lived there. Luke answered with small stories about the town's history, the seasonal changes, and life on the ranch. Emily felt herself relaxing in his presence, noticing the sincerity in his words, the gentle humor, and the respect with which he spoke to everyone he encountered. The morning felt timeless, a pause in the busy world where only the snow, the town, and their conversation existed. They decided to walk toward the small park near the station. The trees were covered in snow, branches bending slightly under the weight of each flake. Children were building small snowmen, and a few couples walked hand in hand, enjoying the quiet beauty of winter. Luke and Emily watched for a moment, sharing smiles at the simple joys of life. Luke realized how long it had been since he had noticed such details, since he had taken the time to truly see the world around him. Emily, too, found herself appreciating the quiet moments, realizing how often she rushed through life without pausing to enjoy small pleasures. Luke suggested they stop at a small cafe near the park. The warm glow from the windows invited them in. As they stepped inside, the rich aroma of coffee and baked goods filled their senses. The cafe was quiet, with a few patrons enjoying the calm of the morning. Luke led Emily to a table by the window, where they could watch the snowfall outside. They removed their coats and settled in, sipping hot beverages that brought comfort against the cold air outside. Luke felt a quiet happiness, a feeling of contentment he had not known in years. The conversation flowed naturally. They talked about their favorite books, the simple pleasures that made them happy, and their memories of past holidays. Emily spoke of her family traditions, the trip she had taken, and the city she called home. Luke shared stories of growing up on the ranch, the seasons, the animals, and the satisfaction of working with his hands. Laughter came easily, soft and genuine, filling the cafe with warmth. Each word they shared deepened a connection that neither of them had anticipated, but both welcomed wholeheartedly. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently. The quiet beauty of the morning added to the sense of magic surrounding their encounter. Luke and Emily watched the children play and the townspeople move about their day, noticing details they might have missed otherwise. Luke realized that life had more to offer than just the routine of the ranch. Moments like this, simple and unplanned, could change everything. Emily felt the same, understanding that sometimes the most meaningful connections came when least expected. Time passed quickly. The morning light shifted, and the cafe began to fill with more patrons. Luke and Emily knew they could not stay indefinitely, yet neither wanted the moment to end. They decided to take a walk along the main street, the snow crunching under their boots. The town felt alive yet peaceful, a small world wrapped in the soft white of winter. Luke pointed out small details: the old lampposts, the bakery with the freshest bread, the decorations hanging from the windows. Emily noticed and appreciated each one, realizing how much thought went into even the smallest things. As they walked, Luke felt a sense of hope he had not known in years. The wish he had whispered under the stars the night before was no longer a distant dream. It was real. Emily was here, sharing his morning, his thoughts, and a quiet understanding that neither needed to explain. He realized that life could surprise him in the simplest, most profound ways. Emily, too, felt a sense of wonder at the unfolding day, amazed at how a stranger had become so significant in such a short time. They stopped near a frozen fountain in the town square. Luke watched Emily carefully as she gazed at the ice-covered sculpture. He felt a protective warmth, not in the sense of guarding her from danger, but in wanting to share care, attention, and respect. Emily turned toward him, and their eyes met. The quiet snow, the soft light, and the peaceful town seemed to frame the moment, creating a memory they would carry with them forever. Neither spoke at first, letting the silence hold its gentle magic. Finally, Luke spoke, breaking the quiet with a soft voice. "I'm glad you're here," he said. Emily smiled, her eyes reflecting the same sentiment. "Me too," she replied. It was simple, honest, and filled with meaning. They continued to walk slowly, noticing the world around them, sharing thoughts and laughter, and building a connection that was quietly powerful. The morning felt endless, filled with possibilities neither had imagined before. As the day moved forward, Luke and Emily knew that life would continue, but this morning had changed everything. The connection they had formed, born of chance and quiet hope, felt like the start of something important. The snow continued to fall, wrapping the town in a soft white blanket. Luke realized that sometimes the simplest moments, the walk to the cafe, the conversation over coffee, the shared laughter, were the most meaningful. Emily felt the same, understanding that this encounter was a rare gift, a beginning of something wonderful. The next few days passed in a way that felt like magic to Luke. He had never imagined that someone like Emily could enter his life so effortlessly, and yet she had. Each morning he found himself thinking of her, anticipating the moment when he might see her again. The snow continued to fall gently across the ranch, creating a quiet world where only the horses, the fields, and the small cabin mattered. The routine of chores and work remained, but it was now touched with excitement and warmth. Emily spent the mornings walking through the town and the afternoons exploring the outskirts, following Luke as he showed her the ranch and the animals. She helped him feed the horses, noting how gentle they were under his care. She learned the rhythm of the ranch, the small tasks that kept everything running smoothly, and the quiet satisfaction Luke found in working with his hands. Luke, in turn, showed her the small cabin he had lived in alone for years. It was modest but comfortable, with a fireplace that warmed the room and simple decorations that reflected the seasons. Emily admired the care he had put into the place. They worked together, side by side, in a rhythm that felt natural. Luke showed her how to gather firewood and tend to the horses, and she helped with small chores around the cabin. The tasks were simple, yet they created a bond between them that was growing stronger each day. Emily laughed at her own mistakes, and Luke smiled patiently, offering gentle guidance without judgment. Their shared efforts created moments of quiet connection where words were not always necessary. Each glance, each small gesture strengthened the understanding between them. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, they took a break from their work and walked to a nearby hill. The snow sparkled in the fading light, and the trees were outlined in white. Luke pointed out the tracks of deer and rabbits in the snow, telling stories of animals he had seen over the years. Emily listened intently, marveling at his knowledge and the calmness he brought to every moment. The sky turned shades of pink and gold, and they stood together in silence, sharing the beauty of the winter evening. As they descended the hill, Luke suggested returning to the cabin for a warm meal. Emily agreed, feeling a sense of comfort she had not known for a long time. The cabin smelled of fresh bread Luke had baked that morning, and the fire in the fireplace glowed softly, casting a warm light across the room. They sat together at the small table, enjoying the simple meal, laughing at stories of past Christmases and sharing memories of family and friends. The world outside the cabin felt distant, unimportant, as the warmth of companionship filled the space. During these days, Luke began to notice small changes in himself. He found himself smiling more often, laughing more easily, and feeling a lightness in his heart he had not experienced in years. The weight of solitude that had pressed on him for so long was lifting, replaced by the joy of sharing his life with someone who understood him. Emily, too, felt a sense of belonging she had never expected to find. The quiet ranch, the soft snowfall, and the simplicity of their days created a space where she could be herself without fear or pretense. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Luke pulled out an old photo album. He showed Emily pictures of his family, of past Christmases, and of the ranch as it had looked years ago. Emily listened carefully, asking questions about the people and events in the photos. She noticed the love and pride in Luke's eyes as he shared these memories. The moment was intimate, a sharing of the past that created trust and connection. Luke realized that he had never felt this comfortable opening up to anyone before. Emily realized that she was forming a bond with someone who valued honesty, care, and simple joys above all else. The next day, they decided to decorate the cabin for Christmas. Luke brought out a small tree he had set aside, and Emily helped string simple lights and hang ornaments. The process was quiet, yet filled with laughter and playful conversation. They worked together to make the cabin feel festive, and in doing so, they created a sense of home and warmth that neither had felt alone. The snow fell gently outside, the soft light of the winter morning filling the room, and Luke felt a deep sense of contentment. As Christmas Eve approached, Luke and Emily prepared for the holiday in their own way. They baked bread and small pastries, tending to the fire and enjoying the quiet rhythm of life. They walked through the snow-covered fields, noting the beauty of the world around them and sharing their hopes for the future. Each day brought small joys: the laughter of a horse in the barn, the warmth of a fire in the cabin, the shared smiles of two people discovering a bond they could not have anticipated. One evening, as they sat outside watching the stars, Luke felt the desire to speak what had been in his heart since the morning Emily had appeared on the platform. "Emily," he said softly, "I didn't know what to expect when you came here.
I hoped for someone to share these days with."
And now, I can't imagine this place without you." Emily turned to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight and her own feelings. "Luke," she replied, "I feel the same. I didn't know I could feel so at home with someone I barely knew."
But here, with you, everything feels right. The night was cold, but neither of them noticed.
The world felt small and intimate, wrapped in the quiet of snow and the glow of stars. They stayed outside, talking and sharing stories until the fire in the cabin grew dim. Inside, the cabin was warm and inviting, filled with the sense of baking and pine. Yet the magic of the night seemed to belong to them entirely. Luke realized that the wish he had whispered under the stars was no longer a dream. It was real, living in the presence of Emily and the connection they shared. The following morning, Christmas arrived quietly. Luke and Emily awoke to a soft blanket of snow covering the fields. The horses pawed gently at the ground, eager for their morning feed. Luke prepared a simple breakfast, and Emily helped, carrying plates and laughing as they worked together. The cabin was filled with the soft light of morning, the warmth of the fire, and the gentle music of a quiet winter morning. They shared the meal slowly, savoring the moment, knowing that this Christmas was unlike any they had experienced before. After breakfast, they dressed warmly and walked through the snow-covered fields. Luke showed Emily a small grove of trees where deer often gathered, and they spotted tracks of animals moving through the snow. They paused to admire the beauty of the world, feeling a quiet connection to the land and to each other. Emily realized how rare it was to feel this sense of belonging, to find a place and a person where she felt at peace. Luke realized that life had given him a gift beyond his imagination: companionship, trust, and the warmth of shared days. As the afternoon approached, Luke and Emily returned to the cabin. They decorated the small tree with the last ornaments, placing the final lights carefully to catch the glow of the fire. They stood back, admiring their work. The cabin, simple and modest, now glowed with warmth, life, and the quiet magic of Christmas. Luke felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Emily's presence had turned his home into a place of laughter, love, and companionship. It was a feeling he had longed for, and now it was real. In the evening, they sat by the fire, sipping hot chocolate. Outside, snow continued to fall, creating a quiet white world that seemed untouched by time. Luke looked at Emily, noticing the softness of her expression and the way her eyes reflected the glow of the fire. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for the simple gift of connection, the answer to a wish made quietly under the stars. Emily smiled, sensing the depth of his feeling, and reached for his hand. Now, their fingers intertwined, a silent promise of companionship, trust, and shared days ahead. As night fell, the cabin felt cozy and alive. Luke and Emily talked long into the evening, sharing dreams, stories, and hopes for the future. The snow fell softly outside, and the world seemed to pause in reverence for their bond. Luke realized that the loneliness he had carried for so many years had been replaced with warmth, joy, and hope. Emily realized that the magic of the season was not in grand gestures, but in simple moments, shared tasks, and quiet companionship. Christmas morning arrived quietly, the world outside covered in a soft white blanket. Luke and Emily awoke early, eager to enjoy the day together. They prepared a simple breakfast, fed the horses, and stepped outside to admire the beauty of the ranch in winter. The morning felt peaceful, intimate, and full of promise. Luke knew that the wish he had made under the stars was no longer a distant hope. It had come true, not in a grand spectacle, but in the quiet, perfect companionship he had longed for. Christmas morning arrived quietly at the ranch. The snow covered the fields and the barn, sparkling in the soft morning light. The air was crisp, and the world seemed peaceful and still. Luke woke early, as usual, and immediately thought of Emily. The quiet ache of loneliness that had always accompanied him at Christmas was gone. In its place was a warmth that filled his chest, a gentle happiness he had never expected to feel. He smiled as he prepared for the day, feeling a lightness he had not known for years. Emily woke soon after, smiling as she looked around the small cabin. The fire in the fireplace glowed softly, casting warm light over the simple decorations they had hung together. She pulled on her boots and wrapped herself in a scarf, ready to step into the winter morning. She felt a sense of calm and belonging she had never felt before. The ranch, the snow, and Luke's presence made her feel at home, as if she had always belonged there. She took a deep breath, savoring the crisp air, and quietly thanked the universe for the gift of this day. Luke and Emily shared a simple breakfast, laughing softly over small stories and memories from their past Christmases. Luke told Emily about the time he had tried to bake bread with his father and had ended up with a burnt loaf, while Emily shared a story of her childhood, when she had decorated a tiny tree in her apartment with paper ornaments. Each story, small and ordinary on its own, became extraordinary in the presence of shared laughter and understanding. The cabin felt alive, filled with warmth, joy, and the quiet magic of companionship. After breakfast, Luke suggested they take a walk through the snow-covered fields. Emily agreed, excited to see the ranch in the soft light of Christmas morning. The horses watched them from the barn, curious and gentle, their breath rising in soft clouds of steam. Luke led Emily through the fields, pointing out the tracks of deer and rabbits, and showing her where the animals liked to wander. Emily listened carefully, fascinated by Luke's knowledge and the way he moved through the land with ease and confidence. She felt safe and peaceful in his presence, her heart light with the joy of the morning. They stopped near a small grove of trees, where the snow had created delicate patterns on the branches. Luke pulled Emily close, and they stood together, taking in the quiet beauty of the scene. The snow glimmered like tiny diamonds, and the sunlight reflected off each flake. Luke realized that this moment, simple and ordinary in the eyes of the world, was extraordinary to him. It was a gift beyond anything he had hoped for, a quiet miracle born from a wish whispered under the stars. Emily felt the same, understanding that sometimes the most magical moments were the simplest ones. As they walked back toward the cabin, Luke suggested preparing a small gift for each other. They had agreed earlier in the week that they would exchange nothing large, only something small that held meaning. Luke handed Emily a small bundle of hand-carved wooden ornaments he had made during the long winter nights. Each one was simple, shaped like a horse, a star, or a tree, but they were filled with care and effort. Emily's eyes lit up with appreciation. She handed him a small box with handmade cookies, shaped like snowflakes, each one decorated carefully with icing. They laughed together, enjoying the simple exchange, each gift a symbol of thoughtfulness and care. Later, they prepared the small tree in the cabin, placing the ornaments they had exchanged alongside the others they had hung together. The tree glowed softly in the light of the fireplace, casting shadows that danced across the walls. Luke and Emily stepped back, admiring the work they had done together. The cabin felt cozy, alive, and filled with the quiet joy of shared effort. Luke felt a deep sense of gratitude, knowing that the loneliness he had carried for so many years had been replaced with warmth, companionship, and love. Emily felt a profound sense of belonging, realizing that she had found a place where she was truly welcome. As the day moved forward, they decided to visit the town. The streets were covered in snow, and townspeople greeted them warmly, smiling at the sight of the cowboy and the visitor walking together. Luke introduced Emily to a few neighbors, explaining how she had arrived on the train and how they had met. Emily felt the town's gentle acceptance, a feeling she had not experienced in many years. They stopped at the small market, picking up fresh bread and fruit, enjoying the bustle of the holiday season without the rush or stress of the city. When they returned to the ranch, they spent the afternoon tending to the animals. Emily helped feed the horses and collect eggs from the small coop. Luke showed her how to check the fences for damage from the snow and how to make sure the animals were warm and safe. The tasks were simple, yet they created moments of connection, laughter, and shared accomplishment. Luke realized that this was the life he had longed for: quiet work, simple routines, and someone to share it with. Emily realized that she could feel at home in the simplest places, where trust, care, and companionship mattered more than wealth, noise, or fame. As evening approached, Luke and Emily returned to the cabin. The sky turned shades of pink and orange, reflecting off the snow-covered fields. They stood together outside, breathing in the crisp air and admiring the beauty of the winter evening. Luke turned to Emily, taking her hand gently. "I never expected this," he said softly. "I never thought someone could come into my life and make it feel so full, so right." Emily squeezed his hand in response. "I feel the same," she replied. "I never expected to find someone like you in a place like this, but it feels perfect." They went inside and Luke lit the fireplace again. The cabin glowed with warmth and soft light, creating a peaceful atmosphere. They sat together, talking quietly about their dreams for the future, about the life they hoped to share, and about the small joys that made life meaningful. Luke realized that the wish he had made under the stars had come true in a way he had never imagined. It was not a grand miracle, but a quiet, gentle gift of companionship and love. Emily realized that the magic of Christmas was not in gifts or decorations, but in the connection between hearts. Later that evening, as snow continued to fall softly outside, Luke and Emily sat near the window, watching the world turn quiet under the winter sky. The ranch was still, the animals settled, and the cabin felt like a small world of its own. Luke turned to Emily and smiled. "You've changed everything," he said. "Not just this ranch, not just my days, but how I feel about life." Emily smiled back, her eyes shining with emotion. "You've changed me too," she replied. "I never thought I could feel this calm, this happy, in a place so quiet and simple. But with you, it feels like home." The night grew darker, but neither of them wanted to move from the warmth of the fire. They talked softly, laughed at small memories, and planned for the days ahead. The connection between them had grown deeper, stronger, and more meaningful than either had expected. Luke realized that this Christmas he had received a gift greater than any he could have imagined. Not just companionship, but love, trust, and the joy of sharing his life with someone who understood him. Emily felt the same, knowing that she had found a place where she belonged, and a person she could share her heart with. As the clock ticked toward midnight, Luke and Emily sat quietly, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. The snow continued to fall, covering the world in soft white, creating a peaceful and perfect setting. Luke reflected on the wish he had made under the stars, whispered quietly to the universe. It had come true in the most beautiful and gentle way. Emily reflected on her journey, realizing that the path she had taken had led her to exactly where she was meant to be, beside someone who cared, who understood, and who could share the quiet joys of life. Finally, they decided to step outside one last time before bed. The moon reflected off the snow, casting a gentle glow across the fields. They stood together, holding hands, listening to the soft sounds of winter. The distant call of an owl, the rustle of the horses in the barn, and the gentle fall of snow. Luke turned to Emily, his voice soft but full of feeling. "Merry Christmas," he said. Emily smiled, leaning close to him. "Merry Christmas," she replied. It was a simple greeting, but it carried a world of meaning: hope, love, companionship, and the promise of shared days to come. As they returned to the cabin, the warmth of the fire and their shared connection filled the room. They prepared for sleep, knowing that tomorrow would bring new tasks, new chores, and new joys. but the bond between them had been sealed in the quiet magic of Christmas morning. Luke realized that the loneliness he had carried for so many years was gone, replaced by the warmth of a heart opened to love. Emily realized that the journey she had taken to the small town had led her to a place of peace, belonging, and the promise of a life shared with someone special. That night, as they drifted to sleep, the snow continued to fall softly outside. The ranch, the cabin, and the world felt quiet and perfect. Luke and Emily, side by side, slept, knowing that their lives had changed forever. The cowboy's wish, whispered under the stars, had been answered, not with grandeur or spectacle, but with a gentle real-life miracle: companionship, understanding, and love on a quiet winter morning, a Christmas they would never forget.